So what's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the JevMan316 Custom YouTube channel. I'm your host, JevMan316, your pop culture reporter. So, what if I told you there was a new horror film out that was set back in time, back in 1994? And then after that, what if I told you that it was mostly a slasher film, and that was going to be part of a trilogy, that each film was going to come out 1 week apart, so you'd see all three pretty quick, one right behind the other one? What if I told you that it had some really great special effects, like a lot of gory blood? You probably think that this movie had all the makings of the next great horror franchise, right? Well, what if I told you all the main characters were high school students, and that throughout the movie you had to deal with a lot of teen type drama? Well, what if I told you that it just wasn't a slasher, that it also dealt with like witchcraft and other supernatural elements? And then what if I told you that this film series was based on a book series, and that book series was written by R.L. Stine, and it was called Fear Street? No, not Goosebumps, don't get them confused. So everything that I just mentioned relates to the new Netflix film series Fear Street. And Fear Street Part 1, 1994, recently dropped on the streaming service, and I watched it. If you've not seen the film, did any of what I mentioned earlier give you mixed feelings about seeing it? Do you think you'll like it? Do you think you'll not like it? Well, if so, you're not alone, because I had mixed feelings after watching it. So Fear Street 1994 offers a lot to digest in just this 1 hour and 47 minute runtime. But is it good enough to avoid my hot garbage rating? Before you find out, please do the normal YouTube stuff. Like this video. Make any comments below about my reviews or the movie itself. Let me know your thoughts. After you do that, subscribe to the channel. Why not? It's easy to do. And always remember to hit the notification button so you'll know when I post my next movie review, like the next installment of the Fear Street series. So let's talk Fear Street Part 1, 1994. Let's go. So Fear Street 1994 is directed by Leigh Janiak and is based on the Fear Street book series as written by R.L. Stine of Goosebumps fame. Once I saw the trailer on YouTube saying that this Fear Street movie series would be a trilogy of horror movies taking place during a different time period for each movie, but that everything would all be interconnected, I was super excited to see all three films. I was even more excited when I found out that one of the films would be a summer camp slasher that was going to be set in the year 1978. That's going to be the second one, though. As far as this one goes, I'm personally a child of the 70s and 80s, but I was still young enough in the 90s to enjoy the nostalgia of this first film in the series. This one was set in 1994. So after watching Part 1, I do have mixed feelings and emotions, though. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot of good to be found here. Horror buffs like me would definitely love that opening sequence of the movie. The whole opening sequence takes place in a mall, and it feels like a typical slasher from that era. Everything feels like a very authentic mall setting for that time as well. The lighting is great, the music is cool on the soundtrack, the acting by the young actress Maya Hawke in that first sequence is outstanding. Maya plays a character named Heather, who is closing the mall bookstore when she has her very first encounter with the quote-unquote killer. The creators of this series are obviously playing homage in this first part to Scream in this opening sequence, considering Heather's interaction with the killer, along with the hooded robe and mask that the killer wears. This opening in the mall is awesome and gives the film a tremendous jumping off start for the series. I know the director grew up in the 90s, so she was able to utilize all of her own, memories and experiences to fall back on, so that everything in the movie feels like it's from that time period. The movie feels really authentic, and it mostly works. There are a lot of references to other movies from the time sprinkled throughout the first movie. Most of the songs used on the soundtrack are great choices also. Other than there are probably a few songs that I remember that came out after 1994, but I'm going to give them a pass since all of the soundtrack really was from the 90s at least. There is definitely a desire to put a Scream-like framework around a Stranger Things type cast, which should also appeal to the masses. But keeping a horror hound like me happy is going to take a lot more than that. It's going to take a lot more than just atmosphere and nostalgia. I'm going to say that the kills are really good, and the level of gore was way more than I ever expected. So kudos to the creators for catering to the horror hounds like us with all that carnage candy, as Cody says. So I've talked a lot about the positives so far, but how about some negatives? Let's get into a little bit of that. Most of the positives that I mentioned can be thought of as like a window dressing around the movie. So what about the main aspect of the film, like the cast and of course the plot? As far as the cast goes, the cast is a huge ensemble of young actors. Most of these young actors do a great job, though, with the material they're given. But I just did not feel like a connection with most of them like I did the cast on something like Stranger Things or a movie like Goonies, or even an older film like a horror film like Scream. I just do not remember 90s kids talking and acting like this. The dialogue doesn't really feel authentic to me for the time. Even though I was finishing college in the early 90s, I still had a lot of kids around in my neighborhood that were around this age. I interacted with them a lot, and the dialogue feels like they took kids from today and transplanted them, or maybe had them time travel back to 1994, so they talk like today even though it's not in this time period. I also don't remember this level of drama with kids back then. This movie feels more like a tween drama on the CW network during the heart of the film, instead of the slasher horror movie that it's really supposed to be. I don't think I would have been friends with most of these kids back then, and I don't feel like a genuine connection with them now after seeing them. They seem just like forced stereotypes of characters we have come to expect from horror films. Finally, I think the plot is also very convoluted. There is something to be said for slasher films of the 80s or 90s. You know, they were really had a good formula. Even though those films like, let's say like Scream, they did add like a whole whodunit type element to it. It's still, most of them followed the normal formula. And even with that, it was not overly complicated, and it remained fun throughout the entire runtime most of the time. Here in this movie, I was immediately worried, though, after that opening mall scene, because after the mall scene, you go right into the opening credits, and those credits are full of a lot of flashing news articles and newspaper clippings coming back and forth on the screen about the town's history. You find out that you're not just dealing with a slasher film here. There's this whole 300-year history of the town that they live in, where they've dealt with witches and curses. So to me, less is more, and this movie's got a lot more. It really has a lot going on at all times. It seems a little bit too busy for my taste. Hopefully this is not going to be the case with the second film in the installment, and probably even the third from the series. So after much deliberation inside my mind, I'm not going to hit Fear Street 1994 with my hot garbage rating. This is way more good here than bad, and this did a nice job of setting up the next one, and I can't wait until the next movie drops at the end of this week on Netflix. I'm really looking forward to that one. I'm going to give this movie thumbs up. It's not the best horror film that I've seen recently, but it's definitely not the worst. It's got a top-notch production, sound design. The young actors are pretty good. If nothing else, it did give a perfect setup for what I think is going to be the best film of the trilogy coming up in Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Can't wait for that one. So that's my honest take on Fear Street Part 1, 1994. What did you think of the movie? Did you like it? Do you like my review of the film? Are my likes and dislikes the same as yours, or are they far-fetched? If not, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. I'd love to hear what other people think of this one before we get the second part dropped on us. So after you leave any comments below, do me a favor, like my video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hopefully you'll get a lot of great content like this movie review that I just did in the future, where you can come back and enjoy, and you'll know when I post those because you're going to hit the notification bell, and it's going to notify you when I post my next movie review, toy hunt, movie hunt, pop culture related videos. That's what we do here, and you know you want to come back and watch. So I really appreciate the support you guys have been giving me. My channel is growing, and I couldn't do it without great people like you. And this is JeffMan316, your pop culture reporter, signing out saying you guys be safe out there.